So we're on. We're on. So y'all watch the screen. I don't have to tell y'all this every time. Remedial. This is a remedial Torah class.
Well, at least we can be
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'll do it one more time so y'all can see that. Shabbat Shalom.
There you go. Yeah. Shabbat Shalom.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ah.
Okay.
But he pays him to make those sounds. Those impressed sounds.
He pays him, yeah.
You guys all pay me for this stuff because you're all taxpayers.
He works for the government.
Oh, I know, but they don't have anything to do with,
Keep paying your taxes, that's good money.
they don't have anything to do with God stuff, you know. The government
I'm
does
sure
it.
Wade is the light in the dark place.
Wade is the dark place.
That's not nice.
It was said with love. It was just a little off,
We
a
must.
little weird love.
Avoid Lashon Hara.
Okay. If y'all are through talking,
Wait a minute, this is Paul's house.
Wade already started.
Everybody out there in YouTube land
Yeah.
listening.
Both of them.
I tell you what.
I'm not there this week, I'm here.
Oh, I don't know why.
Alvin, can you call this group to order?
He's tried before.
Looks like there's a leadership issue.
I think you're right. I've told you that before. It says, how many were there? Which way are they going? I must find them. I'm their leader.
Are you going to do the we're through playing now thing?
Yeah, I'm going to do it all. I'm not holding anything back today.
I like the dancers.
Yes, those are the dancers.
I like the colors.
Y'all won't notice, but down there in the lower right corner is Joplin. See her down there?
Yeah. She's not doing cartwheels.
No.
We don't like
She got called out for cartwheels. She can't do them in the church anymore. Not me. I'm not taking that on.
I should have known.
I'm trying to figure out which one is Miriam.
Miriam?
The one with the tambourine.
But they all are.
She's the one leading out in front down there. See, that's the one on the upper left corner.
The one with the sash.
Sash.
The one in the green.
One of them has a belt. The rest of them don't.
I thought it was one in the green.
Okay, moving on.
Moving right along.
We're easily.
So this is portion. Beshalach. Did anybody? I watched Brad Scott's Beshalach from a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. When he died, 2020.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Got a little bit carried away there. My finger hit the button. Pardon me.
Shabbat Shalom.
And he did a 28-minute Torah study.
Set your goal.
28 minutes. No, I can't do it in 28 minutes.
Be a little non-committal on that one.
You have to talk pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, it was really good. I mean, I like Brad Scott, and his deal was, he said, you get your instructions at the mountain. He said, but why are you getting instructions at the mountain? He's because you were freed by the blood of the Lamb in Egypt. Okay? And you were baptized. He said, you received the seed in Egypt. And you received the seed because you were covered by the blood of the Lamb. And then you go to the Red Sea and you're baptized, and your owner, the one that's deceiving you, the one that's what do they call it? the restrainer. Now, who is the restrainer? The restrainer was Pharaoh. He's keeping you from abandoning your old gods and going to the true God. And so the restrainer was destroyed, Pharaoh, in the Red Sea. When you're baptized, Satan has no power over you anymore. And so then you go to the mountain and get your instructions. So
That's what I've been set free means.
So Exodus, I've got it up here on the screen. Then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, "Sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider has been thrown into the sea." What's significant about the horse and his rider?
The one
She
in
was coming
Revelation,
back on
the first rider on the white horse in Revelation with the
Right.
bow.
Right. All the symbolism in Revelation is about armies, horses, and attack, and redemption. And so, it's kind of a tie between salvation and redemption.
Riding the white horse to look like a good guy.
To look like a good guy. Where's my,
Oh, the first
where's my
horse.
pointer?
Where's your pointer?
He rides
A pointer.
the horse to look like he's a
It
good guy.
disappears sometimes.
But then the actual good guy comes on
Yeah.
the white horse.
And Deuteronomy 32, 45 through 47. Y'all have that memorized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Moses had finished speaking all these words to all Israel, he said to them, "Take to heart all the words by which I am warning you today, that you may command them to your children, that they may be careful to do all the words of this law. For it is no empty word for you, but your very life. And by the word you shall live long in the land that you're going over the Jordan to possess." And what did Yeshua say about this? In John 5, 46 and 47. When he was talking to the Pharisees, he says, "For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words?" So, as Alvin was saying this morning, if you don't believe the law, how can you believe who Yeshua was
Right?
and what he stood for? So with that said, join me in the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us in his commandments and commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. And in Hebrew, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzavanu le'asot b'divrei Torah. Okay. The title, Beshalach, comes from the first verse of the reading. I've got this up here. I need to get it. Can be literally translated to say, "And it happened when Pharaoh sent out the people." Reading tells the adventures of the Israelites as they leave Egypt, cross the Red Sea, receive miraculous provision in the wilderness, and face their first battle. See, it's all exciting, isn't it?
Watch the first battle?
Hmm? Don't get me distracted. I'm having a hard enough time as it is. I like it. It says can be literally translated. It happened when Pharaoh sent out. I always say he told them to get out of Dodge. But, so we're going to do the pillars of cloud and fire, the crossing of the sea, and the pursuers drowned, the song of Moses and Miriam, the bitter water made sweet, the bread from heaven, water from the rock, and Amalek attacks Israel and is defeated. So, So this starts with Pharaoh getting drowned in the sea, and Amalek attacking them in the end. So how are those two things related?
Any enemies of Israel being destroyed with God's help or by God.
Okay, yeah. Pharaoh said he was a god, right? And so he wouldn't let them go, and he had to be defeated. And he's resurrected as Amalek, and it's Satan saying, "I'm not gone yet. I'm not done yet." So the restrainer, the people, the force that draws us away from God, is still in the world today.
And he came up from behind grabbing the weak.
Mm-hmm.
Is Amalek related to Lot? Are they the descendants of Lot?
No,
It was Esau, wasn't it?
Esau.
Oh, Esau, okay.
Amalek was the grandson of Esau,
Okay.
and his, yeah. And Brad covered that in the story too, because some people deny, because it's listed that Amalek, they say that he existed before Esau, because it's listed, but it's listed in there so that you will know who the Amalekites were, because they came from Esau, that area. Okay, so Exodus 13:17 through 14:8. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was nearby. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea, and the people of Israel went out of the land of Egypt equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones with you from here. And they moved on from Sukkot and encamped at Etam on the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Then Yahweh said to Moses, tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hatarot, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal Zephon. You shall encamp facing it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the people of Israel, they are wandering in the land, the wilderness have shut them in, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his hosts. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, and they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people, and they said, what is this that we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us? So he made ready his chariot, and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with other officers over all of them. And Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel, while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. So what does the word Beshalach mean? Okay. It's the PL definition, construction of the verb shalach, meaning to send away. So it can be translated as dispatch and so on. Pharaoh sent away the people. A shaliach is an emissary. How is emissary used in the New Testament? Apostle. So he sent them away as apostles. And the Midrash states that he said, when you go, pray for me. That's what Pharaoh said. When you go to the wilderness to pray for your God, also pray for me. So that's another thing that Brad was mentioning, was that the word Beshalach, meaning apostle, said that he sent them out. So how many apostles were sent? 600,000 men. quite a few. You think there was more apostles sent in the Old Testament than there was the New Testament?
Probably.
Probably, yes.
Just like the word church occurs more time in the Old Testament than in the New.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is that God sends his apostles out to spread the word. He said you are to be a light to the nations. He didn't say you're supposed to go out and make a new religion and keep it to yourself. Right. So why didn't God lead the Israelites directly back to their homeland, but instead led them along through the desert?
He was afraid if he took them by
The
those
Philistines,
guys that they would
Those
be
guys.
afraid.
if they saw war, they would cower down and run away.
Yeah,
Mhm.
They were armed when they went out, see.
the Philistines.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But he
wanted to
really
teach
did
them.
it to reveal his glory and to
Nobody-
destroy the Egyptians.
Nobody had
I
a
mean,
job. over
Pharaoh would be destroyed completely.
Right. It's because God's smarter than we are and knew what he was doing, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
spiritually speaking, you might say that God chose by the way of the wilderness, Bamidbar, say it, the way of the desert, that the people would learn to depend on him alone to meet their needs. And, it's kind of the same way today. I mean, our world is messed up. I mean, I always accuse Alvin of stealing what I want to say every day because he's talking about all these things, about the world 50 years ago. It's so much different than it was today. And 50 years ago, it wasn't all that good. I mean, I was listening to Os Guinness the other day, and he's a guy from England that has written some books about the transition of America. And he said in 1969, y'all remember that year, right?
Only half of it.
There was 100 cities in the United States on fire because of rioting. Most people don't remember how much rioting and stuff was going on back in the day.
Kent State kind of thing.
I don't remember. I wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, the point being is that it's the same thing that's going on in the world today. And what started back then is what's fueling what's going on now.
Right.
What has been will be again.
Yeah. And it's all about abandoning our relationship with God. The parasha refers to God as our healer. Adonai Rafeka. Is that the way you say that? The same verb, rof, to heal, also occurs in Isaiah 53:5, where it is written, with his stripes we are healed. The word translated stripe, kabarah, comes from the same root as the word friend. What's the word friend in Hebrew? Kaver. Therefore, we can read this as, in his friendship we are healed. How is Yeshua our friend? And I had to do this.
Because we want to do the things that he wants to do.
No. Yes.
Because we follow his commandments.
Are y'all like that? Y'all did all these hymns today, so I really... Y'all, see, I didn't know you were going to do that. Don't y'all like that? Yeah, I had to fade it away. I didn't want y'all to get carried away. Y'all remember how that hymn ends?
No.
What friend we have with you.
Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield thee. Thou wilt find a solace there. So, I don't know. We just don't sing all the good old hymns. Why don't y'all sing more hymns, Alvin?
We're working on it.
I know.
But you know what? A lot of them, when you start listening to them, I think they give the wrong thing because they're telling you we're going straight to heaven. We're all going to be right in heaven just in a minute here.
Theologies of wisdom.
Yeah.
Flag winging.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of it
Yeah.
is like that. I'm going, what?
Or Friday's disappointment.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, how did God show the Israelites which way to travel?
Pillar of fire and a cloud.
Pillar of
Fire.
He went before them, leading the way.
Yeah. Pillar of fire, pillar of cloud. This is likened to a king who carried a torch for the benefit and honor of his beloved sons. So, were the children of Israel the sons of God?
Yes.
Is that what he considered them? Israel is my firstborn son. Okay, number 2. See, this is. I'll get this over here too. Exodus 14:9 through 14. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them and camped at the sea by Pi-hahiroth in front of Baal-Zephon. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to Yahweh. And they said to Moses, "It is because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to have served the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." And Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today you shall never see again. Yahweh will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." Yahweh said to Moshe, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his hosts and chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh and his chariots and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh drove the sea back by a strong east wind at night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on the right hand and on the left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, Yahweh in the pillar of fire and the cloud looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from before Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Egyptians." So why did God tell the Israelites to turn back and camp at Freedom Valley, Pi-hahiroth, before the Lord of the North, Baal-Zephon?
To make them look like fish in a barrel.
Yeah, to make them look like they were lost, didn't know what they were doing. That name, Pi-hahiroth, literally means the mouth of freedom. They say the valley of freedom, but the mouth kind of forms the valley, so it's an idiom. So,
Body.
the movement of Israel, was kind of like what do you call it? A tactic, a trick to lure the Egyptians in. So God said, "I'm doing this so that I will get glory."
Harden Pharaoh's heart. Look at these
But what happened at the end? Just before their baptism. Then God entirely destroyed the powers of darkness arrayed against his people. Why do we call that the powers of darkness?
It's fear.
Well, it's fear, it's evil, it's, what does Satan do?
Killed, steal, destroy.
Steals, kills, and destroys, and poses as an angel of light.
He poses as an angel of light. In other words, when Pharaoh said they're encamped at Baal-zephon, that was an idol. That was the god of the sea that was protecting that crossing. And so he said, our God has trapped him. So, same thing as the other defeat. What is meant when the Torah says the Israelites were leaving the land with a high hand? It actually says high hand. It's Biad Ramah. Means that the people were marching boldly, not as slaves. They were marching in triumph, like conquerors in battle. The pursuing Egyptians regarded this as an affront. In other words, once you see them going off, and then you think, you really think we should have done that? You ever have second thoughts? Do y'all think all this?
We let our free labor go.
Okay.
Verse 18 says he moved them for battle too, so they could have gone to war up north.
Right. But the thing is think about all the awesome events that are going on. Are these awesome events?
Yes.
Miraculous, you might say.
I mean, you look at, we have 10 plagues, 9 plagues, and then the death of the firstborn. And then they take them down to the Red Sea. They cross when the waters divide. And I didn't show that picture this year, but on the Red Sea, there's a little, on each side, there's the waters are 5,000 feet deep. And there's a little deal that comes up, it's about a mile wide, that makes a border across the Red Sea that they crossed on. It's only about 60 feet deep. And so that's where the Red Sea divided, and they went across.
And you found stuff there. And they have found stuff there.
Oh yeah, they found a lot of stuff there.
I'm gonna be there next month. I'll send
Are
y'all
you?
pictures.
Yes, please do that.
Okay. Are you going to go skin diving down there?
I don't know.
You can take my son, he's a skin diver.
I mean,
Or
I'm
a
qualified.
scuba diver. I don't know why I say
I
skin
did it in
diver.
the other Red Sea. I was looking for them there, and I was looking in the wrong place.
Yeah,
It was water, right?
yeah. We used to go to that church too. Okay. When the army caught up to Israel, they found him camped before Baal-zephon by the sea. What did the Israelites do?
Panicked.
No. That's the thing. At first you don't succeed,
Try.
blame somebody. Okay. They started blaming Moses. Well, why did you bring us out here? Just so we could die in the desert? So what did Moses say?
Behold the Yeshua of the Lord.
Stand by and see the salvation. That's one of my favorite
Yeah,
verses.
it's the Yeshua of the Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what did he say? He said, it's translated, be quiet, but it's
Really was,
what he
shut up.
says is be speechless. He said, shut up. Because God would again fight on their behalf. What did God then say to Moses? So he says that Moses cried to God, and God
Stretch out
said,
your hand.
No, he said,
No.
why are you
Why are you
crying?
crying?
yeah, he told Moses to shut up. He told Moses, quit praying to me and mobilize the people for action. And then he said, stretch out the staff in and lift up your right hand. So the sages indicate that he didn't point his staff, that he raised the staff and dropped it, and then the Red Sea parted, so that people wouldn't think there was some power in the staff. that it wasn't anything but God's power, not something that you used as a, what do you call that when you use a
Magic
Magic
wand.
wand.
magic wand or something like that?
Divination rod.
Yeah. So, you think the the Egyptians would see that their judgment was coming from the very person that they wanted to drown in the Nile?
They didn't have time to see.
That's kind of a, what do you call that? Ironic, yes.
Irony.
Irony, yeah. The person that they wanted to.
Drown. It's gonna drown them.
Yeah, that's some anecdotal information. Maybe I said this last week. Drowning in the Nile, there was the god of the Nile, and what they did is the Egyptians would bind their prisoners and say, "You're sentenced to death. If the god of the Nile will save you, then you're exonerated." Then they'd throw them in the Nile and they'd drown because they were bound. But if you actually got loose and came out of the water, then they would say the god of the Nile has forgiven you, so you weren't killed. So that was the reason that when they drew Moses out of the water, that they couldn't kill him because the god of the Nile had preserved him. So
Why is called drawn?
that's right. So there's, when I was a kid, I always thought, well, she wouldn't have got him out of the water, she'd just kill him. He's a Hebrew, why? But they would be violating the rules of their God if they did that.
Yeah.
And that's why he was raised in the princess's home and all that stuff.
God used evil for good once again.
Once again. Number 3.
The,
Once again, it's
before we, whenever they went through the sea,
mhm,
because seas are also metaphorical for nature, right?
for people too.
For that's what I meant. The sea, the nations,
Mm-hmm.
right? I said nature, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
For the nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have them go through, and then we're going to get told that they're not to go to the left or the right to get into the nations.
Okay.
Narrow path.
Narrow path.
Straight.
Are we on number 3?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Did we read?
2 and 3 together.
Oh, I didn't think so.
No, I didn't.
Um,
No. Number 3 starts at 26, right?
Much as no.
Oh, I think you started talking about it, and that's what.
Oh, I started talking about it.
Yeah. People like to do that sometimes.
Okay. I'm not perfect.
No, I just mean you get excited about the next part.
That's true
Okay.
because we have a witness.
She is, sister.
Okay. I'm going to read down to 15.
Oh,
And Sharon, you pick up at 15.
oh, that's my favorite part. You know.
I know. So then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon the chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, Yahweh threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained, but the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on the right and on the left. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that Yahweh used against the Egyptians, so that the people feared, and they believed in Yahweh and in his servant Moses.
And Moshe said to the people of Israel, sang the song to Yahweh, saying, "I will sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea, and his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Elohim, glorious in power, and your right hand, O Elohim, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. You send out your fury, it consumes them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall have its fill of them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Elohim, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. Because of the greatness of your arm, they are still as a stone. Till your people, O Elohim, pass by. Till the people pass by whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Elohim, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Elohim, which your hands have established. Yahweh will reign forever and ever. For when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, Yahweh brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aharon, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Then Moshe made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moshe, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a log. And he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There Yahweh made for him a statute and a rule. And there he tested them, saying, If you will diligently listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am Yahweh your healer.
So when the Egyptians attempted to enter the sea, what did God do?
Closed it all.
Brought all the water back on them, drowned them.
No, when they went, the angel of God, which had traveled at the front of the camp, moved to the rear to block the approach of the Egyptians, which points to God's judgment. The pillar of cloud moved between the camp of Israel and the approaching army and remained there all night. This enabled the Israelites to get away. So, how were the waters separated by God? And how does the Torah describe the waters that were split?
The wind blew all night.
It said the wind blew all night.
Last of his
That sounds
nostrils.
familiar.
Blast of the... Yeah,
We know that. Don't we?
yeah. Can anybody tell where the Red Sea was in the Texas Panhandle back then?
It's
Okay.
Amarillo.
It's like Greek. Some of this language is like the creation, like, the Spirit of God, the Ruach, the wind,
Mhm.
then the waters dividing, and the light and the darkness, and then Israel being the new creation. Like, that's how,
It is.
Yeah.
It's almost identical.
Almost like a childbirth.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I did that one time where I showed the sea as splitting and the nation being born. Y'all remember that? Yeah. Forgot about that.
I hadn't thought about it before till just this moment, but I'm wondering if the split rock ever reminded them about the Red Sea being split apart for them to pass through. Could that not have been a physical memory for them?
Yeah. So why is the Shabbat of Beshalach today called Shabbat Shirah? Y'all know what Shirah means? Song?
Okay, Shirah, Shirah.
Shirah. No, it's song. It's the Shabbat song, the Shabbat of the song, because the great song of the sea, praising God for His deliverance. Because this is so important to Israel, the people on Shabbat, on this Shabbat, stand and read the Song of Moses.
Yeah. Also want to make one little point about the east wind.
Uh-huh.
It's usually where it comes from the desert. It's not a favorable condition.
Right.
And that's the locusts too, that came in the eastern.
So the word Shirah is thought to be related to the word Hashrei, which means rest. So it could be the song of rest, the Shabbat of rest. Same thing, same concept. The sages count 50 miracles that occurred between the time of the Exodus and the drowning of the Egyptians in the sea. Can you name some of the miracles? Well, I'm not going to name 50. That'd be
Thanks.
that's a little bit of a. Well, you can the first one that's obvious, the pillar of cloud, and the pillar of fire. That's a miracle, right? So, would you say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart was a miracle?
Well, and even backing up further than that, them leaving Egypt,
Yeah.
just walking away had to be
Yeah.
a miracle.
Well, it's a miracle that you get all the people to walk through if the water was stacked up and they're going through, it's a miracle to get that many people to agree to go, right? So,
They say that hardening his heart was a miracle.
well, yeah, I mean, he had been defeated. I mean, he was saying y'all can go, but now he said, well, I don't care about those other 10 plagues and all those people dying, and I'm going anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a miracle
Yeah, I don't know.
when you're beaten down. Okay, I think it's a miracle.
Or just
More
an
of a-
evil
more of a
spirit
hard-headed-
driving you.
Yeah, more of a hard-headed guy that thinks he's a god. That it's like, well, look how they're messing up. They don't even know where they're going. I can go out there and whoop their behind
Easy.
single-handedly, but I'll take a bunch of chairs with me.
Just in case, yeah.
They're bored.
So, when they were going through the Red Sea, do you think that the Israelites saw the hand of God in it? That's kind of a miracle.
Kind of hard
I
to
mean,
see.
anything ever happened to you guys? Anybody have where something happened and you say, well, the only reason I survived that because it was a miracle?
Uh-huh.
Many times.
Try living in
Yep.
Indonesia.
So, when at the end, a lot of the stuff that the Egyptians had washed up on the beach. So they plundered the Egyptians again. I mean, they probably got additional weapons and all that kind of stuff. Who knows? So after the Israelites realized the deliverance, they all prophetically sang the song of the sea, word for word, letter by letter, after Moses began with, I will sing to God, for he is high. So it's a miracle that they all knew the same song, isn't it?
That is kind of,
Well, I mean, where'd they get sung? It says they all sang.
I think it was Moses sang 2 lines and they repeated 2 lines. And they used to sing like that all the chantor.
Yeah, there you go and killing my miracle.
Some of it's a reach.
How did Moses know the song?
well, and
Okay.
that many people heard, I mean, all
Oh,
of the words and repeated them, that's pretty miraculous too.
Yeah.
So see, Brenda was Same story.
Yeah.
Just
What he did was he said, okay, you 20 people repeat after me.
If Moses is done away with, then how come we're going to be singing the song of Moses in Revelation 15?
Right.
That's my question. We're in for number 4?
God's going to
14.
remind us of all the words.
Yes. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. They set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moshe and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, at evening you shall know that it was Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of Yahweh, because he has heard your grumbling against Yahweh. For what are we, that you grumble against us? And Moses said, when Yahweh gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because Yahweh has heard your grumbling, that you grumbled against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against Yahweh. Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before I, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of God appeared in the cloud. So, what's unusual about how the song of the sea is introduced? Y'all know what's unusual about it? It's written, the Moses and the sons of Israel sang, using a singular verb, yashir, to say that they prophetically sang as one new man after they left their old life in Egypt behind them in the waters. God made them into a new creation, given life by the grace and power of God. So that means it was a real baptism. I mean, that's when you're baptized, you become a new creation. What's the fellow's name that you say if you make a confession of faith and get baptized and you don't change?
Oh, it's John Hagee, isn't it? Let me see.
I think it's Oscar Scott.
That
Yeah.
you don't see a change.
Coming out of
They
somewhere
really
on
haven't.
what Hebrews 10:26 is.
Yeah.
Well,
If we continue to habitually sin after, there's no sacrifice remaining.
if Moses
Yeah.
has done away, then why did
Y'all are getting
God
ahead.
continually ask us to follow his commandments if Moses has done away with?
Maybe. There's another insight. The Hebrew says, I will sing to the Lord, for he is high, which is thought to refer to God's rightful place before all people. All boasting and all pride belongs to God alone, and Pharaoh was judged because he refused to humble himself. So how are we to understand the phrase, the Lord is a man of war? Remember when you read that just then? The Lord is a man of war?
He goes before his firstborn, fighting their enemies.
A metaphor for the Lord is mighty war in relation to the power of Egypt and its gods. So it would have been a simple thing if God would have just wiped them out, got everybody, and just came, right? But it's a whole lot more dramatic when he defeats all of the gods of Egypt. And then he defeats Egypt. And then all that is a time period where the world they see the power of God, but it's not if it was, he just wipes them out. They said, well, it was a storm, or it was a fire, or it was a plague. You could relate it to some natural event. But you can't take the 10 plagues and all the things that he does and say those were natural events. They
You're trying
weren't.
to say
Those were
that.
supernatural events.
Right.
So, I've always said there's a reason to the madness. I mean, we don't see the way God sees until He reveals it.
Someone said to me some years ago, when concerning this of the Egyptians dying in the sea, and the person said, but he loved them too. He loved the Egyptians too. He's not willing for anyone to perish. And I was reading Psalms with David, and he was talking about his enemies, that when one of his enemies died, he mourned. It was just, his prayer went back to his soul, and he mourned for that person. That's a whole new way of thinking of God's love. We rejoice when, you know, we see the enemies go down, but I've been, ever since we watched Dutch Sheets last night, and it had to do with love and loving the person, loving those people, loving and all that, and it just gave me a new thought of how powerful, how awesome God's love is for everybody. But I can see where he is going to war against Satan. He is going to defeat Satan. He already is defeated. And I can see, you might say, both sides of the story.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's salvation or annihilation.
Yeah.
That's basically what it all boils down to. You get to pick.
You can bow your knee in this life, or have it bent in the next life.
so how was Marah a place of testing for Israel? And they got the seven springs, or the 12 springs,
70 palms.
70 palms.
Bitterness.
Yeah. Tomorrow was bitterness.
Bitter water.
Another miracle. How often have you thrown a log in and sweetened the water?
God tested them with thirst. The lack of water forced them to pray and ask God for help. God tested them with bitter waters in a way similar to that of the Sotah, the suspected adulteress, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Torah is bitter without the love of God. Messiah, the tree of life, made the waters sweet.
Sounded like Moses prayed, not sounded like the people griped and complained and Moses prayed.
Where are we at?
5.
Number
You're
5.
6. You're on 6.
No, we're on 5.
Yeah.
So you're just wanting to get ahead, aren't you?
The screen must be different.
Huh?
The screen different than the sheet.
Does it say 5 up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5. That's where
where
I'm
you
at.
are.
Uh-huh.
That's where you are.
That's where I'm 5, right? I finished with 4 last, right?
You didn't finish that.
It says, and Yahweh said to Moses,
Yes.
I've heard the groaning of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat in the morning, and you shall be filled with bread.
I thought
Then
you
you-
already read 16. Didn't you already read the grumbling and all that?
Hey,
Well, they've been grumbling
it
more
grumbles
than-
all the way
Yeah.
through. You remember when you get hungry, how your stomach grumbles? Is that,
They're on their
Or
grumbling.
once you reach a certain age, it sounds like grumbling.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there next week.
Come back now.
At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am Yahweh your God. In the evening quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine, flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground.
Okay, so
When-
you're reading chapter 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, so that's,
I don't.
you're in 16. You're reading 16, 14.
Yes.
But that would be past, that would be 6.
Okay.
Oh, so it's not matching up there.
Oh, it's not matching up there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where the confusion is
But we're
coming.
okay. We are.
We're okay. Just because I made a mistake on the screen
Okay,
doesn't
well,
mean
I'm
I'm
just
not.
looking at that and looking at this.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. I'm
We know
sorry.
where we're at, we just don't know where you are.
Yeah.
I'm in 16 where it says.
Amen.
Rumble grumble.
Well, moving right along.
Moving on.
Where was I?
1650.
When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread that Yahweh has given you to eat. This is what Yahweh has commanded. Gather it, each one of you, as much as you can eat. You shall each take an omer according to the number of persons that each of you has in his tent." And the people of Israel did so, and they gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, "Let no one leave any of it till the morning." But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as they could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what Yahweh has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Shabbat to Yahweh. Bake what you bake, and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid it aside till the morning, and Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Shabbat to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Shabbat, there will be none." On the 7th day some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And Yahweh said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, Yahweh has given you the Shabbat. Therefore on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day."
That's
So
pretty plain.
that's pretty plain. See, I got my screen here messed up too. I didn't notice this.
I don't know if that's where
Keep you on your toes.
Jared
Yeah.
Tolkien got the idea
I'm
for
gonna have to-
limit spread.
I'm gonna have to go up here. What gave the people? God gave the people bread from heaven. What was it called, and what did it taste like?
It was called, what is it?
And it tastes like coriander,
With honey.
coriander seeds.
No, that's what man.
Yeah, I know.
And
It
was
tasted like
coriander.
honey cake. What does 1631 say?
Coriander.
It was
Looked
white
like
like
coriander.
coriander,
Tastes
It
like
tastes like salami.
but tastes like honey.
It's called
Coriander seed.
honey cake.
Tastes like
Honey
wafers
cakes.
made with honey. Sounds good.
It does.
And it was called, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that the church, the same church that thinks that the Mount Sinai is over on the Sinai Peninsula, thinks that this was stuff that was insect larvae? Have you heard that?
Oh,
Have
sick.
y'all heard that? That was a
No.
line that was coming through, and that's what it was. And that's what they teach a bunch of their
Oh,
theologians and
Well,
historians.
So the
That's why they're trying to make us eat insects.
bugs, yeah.
That's what I was.
And they're
But
gonna
I mean,
say,
it's just funny
it'll
that
taste like
they-
honey,
those,
it'll be
those
okay.
church guys really believe that instead of it really just being, you know,
So why did Yahweh rebuke Moses for the sin of those who gathered manna on the Shabbat day?
Because he's the leader.
You think that? So why did
so we
God
did 6.
rebuke Moses for them gathering on the 7th day, trying to gather on the 7th day?
because he's not taking control of his people.
Mm. Well, later on,
Well-
that's a death sentence, so.
Mhm.
Well, I think just like many things that we see, like Yeshua writing the names in the dirt, and us looking past that, not seeing the teaching that in what he's doing, where he's doing the actions of Jeremiah, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this, by feeding them manna and telling them it's a Sabbath, by feeding them manna 6 days and stopping, he's getting them in the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get to the mountain, they'll see wine. At first the blood, and here's wine.
Right. Okay. That could be. It could also be that God attacked Moses to spare the people embarrassment. You know.
Where'd you get that?
Well, the deal is that you know Moses has 600,000 men, and he has to deal with them. You know, this is before he's appointed all kinds of leaders to take up and manage things, and he has to deal with everybody that wants to go back to Egypt, people that want to stay, people that think they're going to die. So God doesn't want to add to his burden by singling out individuals. He just says, Moses, tell the people that they don't let this get out of hand. So he has to redirect it to Moses, not to the individuals that do it. He has to keep his line of command.
And if it was visible to the people, it would be just another example of a substitutionary payment.
Mm-hmm. Think so?
He got chewed out for what we did. Maybe we ought to change our way.
Well, and it's an example of correction too.
Yes.
You can be corrected and not die,
Mm-hmm.
but you can be disobedient and die. So you got to know when to listen and obey.
When to listen and to obey.
It's tough being a leader sometimes.
Lonely at the top.
Lonely at the top.
Prophet cannot let his head down.
So the people rested on the seventh day. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what Yahweh has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before Yahweh, to be kept throughout your generations, as Yahweh commanded Moses." So Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years, till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah.
Now, how much is he?
An ephah? It's a bunch. So, God gave the people bread from heaven. Manna. It was called manna. It tasted like honey cake. The Midrash states that the manna was a function of a person's sense of gratitude. How can that be?
Whoever gathered much had the same amount as those who gathered little.
For the thankful, manna tasted delicious, like a delicious cookie. But to those who murmured, it tasted bland and unsatisfying.
That's interesting.
Think that's right?
Sounds like it.
Probably where somebody tried to copy some stuff.
What does Matthew 9:22 say? According to your faith. Then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, be it done to you. The people were to go out and gather some every morning. So, Yeshua said your faith is what heals you. So, when they went for their manna, what they thought of it is what it was. If they thought, oh, I have to eat the crummy old manna again today, it wasn't any good. But if they said, look at God's provision, it was wonderful.
Well, it makes sense because
That's the same as our lives. I mean, when we say God's law is a burden, it is. But when we say God's law is our life, it is.
Yes.
So
It
it's
makes sense also because in the text there it says it tasted like a honey wafer, but when they're griping about it later on, they're saying, "Oh, it was bland. Oh, we gotta eat this bland crap again."
okay. Moving right along. What happened? I don't know. Got this messed up, so I've got them out of order. I'll just read the rest of it. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages, according to the command of Yahweh, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with the people?" Why did the people? Therefore, people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test Yahweh?" But the people thirsted there for water. And the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why do you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried to Yahweh, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And Yahweh said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. And you shall strike the rock, and the water shall come out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested Yahweh by saying, "Is Yahweh among us or not?" Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose for us men, and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him, and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up on the top of the hill. When Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side, so his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Write this as a memorial in a book, and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heaven." And Moses built an altar and called the name of it, "Yahweh is my banner," saying, a hand upon the throne of Yahweh. Yahweh will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So what happened at the camp at Rephidim?
Amalek came.
Rephidim was a campsite near Sinai. The sages say that Rephidim is related to the word Rapha, meaning lax or lazy, and therefore code for a sense of disregard for the laws of the Torah. Because of this, God made the people thirst again, and the people found no water there. It was the camp of laziness. After the people complained there was no water, what did God tell Moses to do?
Walk in front of them with the elders first.
God told Moses to take some of the elders, go up to Sinai, strike the rock with his staff. Moses did so in the presence of 70 elders, and water flowed from the rock. In Jewish tradition, it is called the Well of Miriam, but in reality, it is a symbolic presence of Yeshua. In 1 Corinthians, it says it was the rock that followed them in the wilderness. So what does the word Horeb mean? The Mount Horeb, the mountain of desolation. Why did God call this place Massah and Meribah? Massah was testing and Meribah was bitterness, argument, because the people engaged in both when they questioned God's care for them by saying, "Is God in our midst?" After all Yahweh had done for the Israelites, they had nerve to ask, "Is God in our midst?"
That's crazy.
Y'all ever had any kids that say you've never done anything for me?
Oh, yeah.
When you've done everything for them?
It's interesting that after they were grumbling, then their enemies, Amalek, came to fight. Maybe we need to take a lesson with that, that if we're grumbling and complaining and moaning and groaning, we might have an enemy. We may be having to deal with some enemies too, spiritual enemies.
So why did God want to both erase the memory of Amalek and wage war against Amalek for all generations?
Because of what he did by attacking the back of the Israelis instead of going toward the front like a real man should do.
So Amalek represents Satan's attempt to destroy Israel, therefore to prevent the advent of the Savior. What are some of the reasons that we would blot out Amalek? Amalek attacked Israel out of sheer spite, without warning, without having a political reason to do so. He attacked the weakest members, in other words, he attacked them from the rear. Amalek continued Pharaoh's sin of denying the Lord's power. Think that? Amalek taught the nations not to fear the Lord or to regard the Exodus as special. Think that?
No.
So, where was Amalek? It's on the way to Sinai. Do you think that Amalek was unaware of what was going on in Egypt with all the plagues that were going on? You know, when Moses was at the burning bush, it was about the time of Passover. And when they leave Egypt, it's about the time of Passover, right? It is Passover. So it's a year. So this whole year, Moses and God have been attacking the Egyptians and freeing the Israelites. So Amalek is on the way, on their path. So they've seen all this stuff going on. They know what's going on. And now they're attacking Israel. So this stuff isn't happening in a vacuum. So the nations around them are seeing what's going on. And who is Amalek? Esau. These are relatives of the people. And they're attacking them. So it's no wonder. So the name Amalek begins with the letter Ayin, symbolizing the eye, which equals 240 in gematria. The same value for Safek, the Hebrew word for doubt. So Amalek therefore suggests the eye of doubt, or even the severed eye, because Malak means to chop or to sever. So it could be the severed eye. Amalek therefore represents a spiritual blindness as it acts in the world. So what's the idea of spiritual warfare in the Bible?
Causing people to distrust God.
Well,
And drift away from His commandments, His word.
it's what we're in. We're in a spiritual battle. I mean, I think someone here has talked about there's a whole battle going on that we don't see. Did I get that right, Alan? Yeah. I mean, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, the world has changed, but the battle's still raging. And we're in the middle of that battle. Yeshua called himself the bread of life, Lechem Kaim, that came down from heaven. What does it mean? He came down from heaven. Okay, the bread of life came down to heaven. Why did he have to come down from heaven? To fight the spiritual battle, to defeat the powers of evil in the world. And how does he do that? Well, yes. God had already made the covenant that said, I will not break this. You won't walk through the halves. I will. So he's saying, I will fight the battle. He has always fought the battle. What is our job in the battle? To believe in him, keep his commandments so that we are preserved. That's what that means.
He defeats him with the two-edged sword, the word that comes out of his mouth.
Right. how are we fed every day by Yeshua?
His word.
By His Word. If we deny His Word, then we're already defeated. If we say that these things, I mean, if you go back, just like when Alvin read the 10 Commandments this morning, and he got to the 7th commandment, and it says, after 6 days of creation, I rested and blessed the 7th day. Okay? If it wasn't 7 days of creation, and if it happened in some other way, then that day isn't blessed, and you've destroyed the beginning. So what will we do if the beginning is destroyed? We have no hope. So our hope is that all of God's Word is true. Okay? If it's not true, then why are we here?
We won't know the end because it's revealed from the beginning.
That's right. So, I mean, it's where we come from, right?
Unless you don't follow His commandments, then He does not know where you come from.
That's why Satan's attacking the beginning.
So, the word Sar of Amalek, the angel, is called Samael, or the Satan. And so, in every generation there is a battle against Amalek. And that battle will not be over until God's throne is established forever over all. May that day come.
We're on it, the Lord.
Hmm?
Jesus God. We're on it, the last word
Hmm?
the last word in New Testament came from Revelation. We're on it, the Lord Jesus come.
Mm-hmm. May that day come. Okay. We're ready for Calvin. See, Calvin, boy, he asked the question, Dad, how do people make babies? Well, look at his eyes. What? Most people just go to Sears and buy the kit, follow the assembly instructions. Yeah, that's what they do. I came from Sears. No, you were a blue light special at Kmart. Almost as good and a lot cheaper. Ah! Dear, what are you telling Calvin now? So see.
Predestination.
You came from Kmart, not
Well, the point being is that you either believe the lie or you believe the truth, right?
I was not sure how you were going to imagine
Well, I mean, it's the hard question is that are we in a spiritual battle?
Yeah.
Are we going to go through tribulation? Yes. What's going to happen in the end?
We win.
What we know is we win. It may not be good for a short while, but if we endure, the Scripture says, those who endure to the end. Okay? So, what was he doing? He was avoiding the question.
If John says you're a partner in tribulation, I'm kind of thinking he means it.
You think he means it?
Yes, your partner, as in you're going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Calvin.
You're not going to get raptured out.
Yeah.
So next week is Yitro. Yitro. Who is Yitro?
It's Jethro.
Jethro.
Priest of the Midian.
His father-in-law, yeah. Okay, join me in the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gave to us the Torah of truth, Yeshua our Messiah, and life everlasting, set in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah. And in Hebrew, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, Yeshua Meshikenu, Bekayi olam netah betikenu, Baruch atah Adonai notin ha-Torah. I've got a new slant on it today. Great peace have those who love your law. Nothing can make them stumble. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words?
This morning I
Amen.
found that is a chiastic structure. 4:19, the way of the wicked is darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. 16 is the first part of that chiastic structure, for they cannot sleep unless they do evil. And the axis of that chiastic structure is, but the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. So we better start shining bright.
Right.
So they can pull a sack over our head like most.
A sack